Instead of giving us a one-line rejection email like they did in 2019, in 2021, they sent us each a dozen pages of detailed rejection points drafted by lawyers. They must have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers. But miracle of miracle, we beat them again in court. We had the best questions of the night. Here's just a little reminder.
I have a question from Tamara Ugolini from Rebel News.
Mr. Trudeau, the only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
The left love that answer. I don't think they should. I think it makes their man look like a tyrant. And this question by Alexa Lavoie was just top notch.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Alexa pour Rebel News. Donc, Monsieur Trudeau, je vais revenir rapidement sur ce qui s'est passé hier. Vous avez diabolisé l'un des rares médias qui ne reçoit pas d'argent du gouvernement. Vous avez exprimé votre opinion en disant que nous propageons la désinformation. Si c'était vrai, et si c'était le cas, la Cour fédérale ne nous aurait pas permis d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis moi-même scientifique et je me base sur les faits. Ma question est la suivante. L'Israël est l'un des pays les plus vaccinés au monde. Ils sont rendus maintenant à leur 4e rappel de vaccin. Ils ne considèrent plus que ceux qui ont reçu 2 doses de vaccin sont pleinement vaccinés. Ma question est, plusieurs Canadiens ne désirent pas avoir un rappel de vaccin. Allez-vous leur enlever leurs privilèges reliés au vaccinal? Et aurez-vous l'obligeance de répondre à ma question en tant que Premier ministre ou allez-vous encore diaboliser mon média?
J'ai partagé ma perspective sur ton organisation hier soir. J'ai plus rien à dire.
Ça demande bien qui vous êtes. Merci.
Yeah, Trudeau doesn't do very well with strong women, does he? Anyways, we beat them in 2021 in court. I'm sure they'll try to keep us out next election, too. They surely have lawyers working on that right now. But anyways, the win was quick. It had to be. We rushed to court in a hurry to get the order to let us in. But the judge who heard the case at the time, Justice Elizabeth Heneghan, only gave a very short ruling at the time. This week, she released her formal written reasons. I want to read a fair bit of it to you. So at paragraph 21, she talks about Trudeau's debates commissioner, quote, in those letters, the commissioner set out the commission's mandate. He referred to the Canadian Association of Journalists, the CAJ, guidelines on conflict of interest, the guidelines, and referred to the media accreditation document issued by the commission, by which the commission adopted those guidelines. Okay, so stay with me here for a moment and you'll understand why I'm quoting this. Paragraph 22. the commissioner proceeded to identify elements of conflict of interest that include the participation of a journalist in demonstrations, endorsements of political candidates, and written opinion pieces about subject matter addressed in the articles written. Now, that's absurd. Every newspaper in Canada endorses candidates in the election. And opinion journalism is absolutely journalism. I think Canada's best journalist is Rex Murphy, who is an opinion journalist. Trudeau's lawyers said we violated those rules by our activism and on our endorsements, and they listed some. They specifically mentioned our fight against vaccine passports, for example, and they mentioned a petition against censorship, by example. But here's why Justice Heneghan mentioned those Canadian Association of Journalism rules, whether they make sense or not. It's because the government, Trudeau, only applied those rules to us. Trudeau didn't apply those same rules about no endorsements or whatever to anyone else who applied. So what Trudeau's lawyers thought was very clever actually undid them. And they're complicated and bizarre rules designed to deliberately trap us and just us. Well, their sneaky plans were actually what made them lose. Here, let me read a little bit more for you from the ruling. Paragraph 39. In my opinion, the applicant, that's us, Rebel, has established a strong prima facie case that it was arbitrarily targeted from the group of accredited media outlets. By means of a media statement entitled Media Accreditation for the 44th General Election, the Commission set out 3 options as to how media representatives could apply for accreditation. Option 1 and 2 allowed for automatic accreditation for media representatives who were members of the Canadian Parliamentary Press Gallery or one of 4 professional media organizations. Any media representatives who was not a member of the above-mentioned groups could only apply under Option 3. Media representatives apply under Option 3 were not eligible for automatic accreditation. Instead, these applicants were evaluated pursuant to the guidelines. The Commission adopted the guidelines, but only applied them to certain applicants. This looks like an arbitrary distinction between groups. Well, exactly. So if you were part of Trudeau's press gallery, which includes foreign state broadcasters, if you can believe that, you were automatically approved. You didn't have to prove anything. You're in. Only we had to jump through these hoops and prove we met some arbitrary criteria, including not endorsing people with that. But all the tricks were what undid them. But let me read to you my favorite part of the ruling. This is paragraph 50. The applicant, that's us at Rebel News, the applicant's case to this issue in terms of freedom of the press and the ability to put critical questions to the leader of the vying political parties. In my opinion, the applicant established irreparable harm in terms of being prevented from participation in the political process on behalf of the electorate. There is room in the nation for the expression of opposing points of view. The applicant, that's at Rebel News, did not ask to impose its views, but for the opportunity to participate in coverage of matters of importance during a federal election. Isn't that great? I love how this judge talks about the interests of the voters, the interests of the electorate. It's not just our rights at Rebel News to be in there. It's the right of the people to have us asking questions on their behalf. So we won the case. But it's nice to see the reasoning, and that's on the books now. It proves what we've been saying, that Trudeau is a thin-skinned censor, that he's obsessed with controlling journalists, and we're one of the few that he doesn't control, that he has spent countless dollars finding ways of silencing us at Rebel News, but that so far we beat him 2 out of 2 times when it comes to us covering federal election debates. Now, there are many other battles that we are losing, I have to tell you, and Trudeau is trying to tilt the playing field for the next time. He's bringing in 3 new censorship laws. We'll talk about those more in the weeks and months ahead. But for now, take satisfaction and hope in the fact that Justice Elizabeth Heneghan from Newfoundland and Labrador has told Justin Trudeau that he, well, has to toughen up a bit and take critical questions, and that his attempts to silence the media are, frankly, un-Canadian and illegal. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.